Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the Jefferson County PUD Board of Commissioners. It is 3 o'clock, Monday, January 9th, 2023. To begin, I'd like to ascertain that we have a quorum of the board. I am Kenneth Collins, Commissioner, District 2, and Chair of the Board.
Jeff Randall, Commissioner, District 1.
Dan Tupper, Commissioner for District 3.
So we do indeed have a quorum. With the adoption by the Washington State Legislature of House Bill 1329, which provides for virtual and in-person meetings, Jefferson PUD will be offering both unless advance notice is provided. In-person attendance will be limited to provide sufficient space and masking is encouraged. Online participant audio will be muted upon entry. Please unmute at the appropriate time to speak. If you're calling in, use *6 to mute and unmute and *9 to raise your hand indicating your desire to speak. I will now entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
If I could, Commissioner Collins.
Yes.
I'd like to add, I want to give a little bit of information about some South County broadband emails that I've been receiving.
Okay, sure. So can we insert that prior to adjournment, or do you want to do that before we get into the main order of business?
Oh, we can do it just before adjournment. It's just an update for you guys. There's no action required. I just want to give you guys some information.
Okay, thank you.
I'll move that we accept the modified agenda.
I'll second the motion.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve the agenda for this afternoon's meeting, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Our agenda has been approved. So, Mr. Street, I think you'll take it from here.
Yes. So what I'd like to talk with the commissioners about is our Landis and Gear meter reading contract and paths forward. I have spent some time with Joel Paisner in the last week and today looking at options. So because we're not getting any information back from Landis and Gear, we need to prepare for the PUD to take over meter reading duties. As part of this, after we talk about it as a group, we would send Landis and Gear a email clarifying our position, stating exactly what we would like to see from them and how long, and then trying to get a response prior to February. That said, we have, and these are very approximate numbers, and Mike has some details for us, but we had a 10-year contract with Landis and Gear for reading our meters. In the contract, there were some stipulations if we fell below a certain level that they could negotiate their costs. Joel has been studying their contract and can have information for the commissioners as that comes about. Right now, we spend approximately $350,000 for meter reading with Landis and Gear per year. Our numbers are below the threshold that we ask Landis and Gear to read. And so they have the right to renegotiate the price for the number of meters. As those meters drop, they can request pricing to make themselves whole. we can't even get to that discussion with Linus and Gear now. We're still discussing how long the terms of the contract should be. So, so staff spent some time not staff has helped. But I'm going to talk about an option have to be ready to use if we can't come to agreement with Landis and Gear, because we have to read our meters. So we're looking at adding 3 meter readers to our meter reading staff. What that would do, that would allow us enough meter readers that we could read the meters in a timely fashion. They would not be daily reads like they get now in Smart Hub, but they would be once a month reads, similar to what we do on the water side. This, to me, is probably the easiest part of this process would be to hire 3 new meter readers. It is entry level into the PUD. We could get local people and, support some good paying jobs with the community. The idea behind these people would then be they would move on when we had our AMI deployment completed. They would move on to fleet, for example. They could move on to the warehouse. They could move over into the line department or into broadband. We have places for them because all these departments are growing and changing. So these would be full-time employees, but they would have to bid to the next jobs like others. And we would reduce the numbers down to meter readers to 2. We believe that's a sufficient number, even with an AMI system. Part of that is our meter readers not only read meters, but they do locates. They, that's a full-time position. How they split their duties is we have one person reading meters, one person locating. They kind of go back and forth. So locating is a full-time gig. We also have opt-out meters that we would have to continue to manually read. So real easy can support 2 meter readers, possibly a part-time meter reader. Also, what we would recommend in this meter reading, we would have to purchase 3 vehicles. That's going to be harder than, I think, finding help, because on the state contract, trucks are several months out at best, if we can find them. Before I go on, Mike, do you have your spreadsheet that you can bring up to show the cost of 3 meter readers? Mike has ran some numbers. I can keep talking, Mike, if you want to. Can't hear you.
Getting it. Well, I thought I was pulling it up. Just a second here. Hey, clicked on the wrong one.
So Mike's going to show you the numbers for the help that we're talking about hiring the 3 meter readers and how he came under those numbers.
Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
So we did the approved budget. So, when we had 3 positions already approved, that's the 3 meter readers we already had. That's the column B there. If we add 3 additional ones, that shows the additional costs of it. So total cost to the PUD is $746,000, about $750,000, which is a total overall increase of about $384,000. But what we can do, unlike the Landis and Gear contract expenses, part of the cost of the meter readers is capitalized. So I roughly looking at about 30% of their time is capitalized. That's changing out the meters, and as they do the AMI stuff. So about $224,000 of the 746 would be capitalized and spread out over 30 years, 20 to 30 years over the life of the meters, where in the first year, we would see an expense of 522,000 for all 6 meter readers. So this includes all costs to the PUD, just for the labor.
Mike,
you have
hold
the-
on.
Yes.
Hold on, Mike. Dan has a question.
Okay,
So a little bit of this would be timing. I understand the fleet concerned about getting vehicles to do the job, and it's the turnover to this. What's the net cost when you factor in the savings it will have from not having the $350,000 Landis+ Gyr contract? I realize we're still going to have to connect up with NISC and other things. So I understand there's probably going to be billing and those sorts of costs that go into that. So is there a net number that you guys can give us right now on that changeover without the Landis+ Gyr contract being what it is now?
so just based on personnel, because we still have the NIC, none of that would really change too much. It would cost us roughly about 34,000, 35,000 more if we dropped the Landis+ Gyr and added the 3 new meter readers without anything else. But there again, we would actually be, as far as expenses, we would be saving money though. Because we would only be expensing, we say total expenses right now, I would say is about 270,000 is the difference between the 3 positions. So if we drop that, you're looking at, you could be saving 80,000 in just expenses, because more of their time would be capitalized, because they would be doing meter exchanges and things, not just meter reading.
So what I'm hearing is there would be a net gain once the Landis+ Gyr contract is no longer in force.
No. Mike is focusing very specifically on hiring 3 people. So, but that doesn't get us to the finish line. Jeff?
Did you want to, once you complete your sentence here, Kevin, and then I'll pick up with the question.
So where labor will be a wash, we have other costs that are going to go into this. And those are going to be significant. We're going to have somebody come in and help us build routes. A lot of these meters we've never been to. We don't know their real location because they get beamed in automatically and nobody's been to them for years. So we're gonna, and the terms I'm using aren't quite right, but we're gonna have to do a survey and survey in each meter and the walk route that the people would have to do to read the meter, because we're going to walk up to every meter, type it into a handheld computer, and then that would download into Gene's billing software. But to get to there is going to take a consultant, somebody to come in and help us. We can do some work in-house, but with everybody stretched as thin as we are, and some of this is an art on how to build this that we don't have in-house, that we would bring someone in. So, you have that cost. You're going to have to deal with NISC and how to get the meters in a timely fashion. There'll be a cost there. That they're not going to be huge, but we want to make sure everyone knows that it's not just the labor. It is fuel costs. It's the cost for the consultant. It's cost to get NISC to do their business. And we're going to have to advertise. We're going to have to do a lot of things just to bring this to the public's attention and how to move it forward. So where we can justify labor, that's probably 3/4 of the cost. The rest we would have to pocket.
Okay, thank you for that. So I'll start with my questions. And I guess just as a beginning point, I think we probably need to proceed in a way that we assume Landis+ Gyr isn't going to help us out, because that's kind of Well, what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is the contract expires. They don't offer any sort of terms that we can accept, and we have to take responsibility for this thing. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. And in some ways, the numbers don't matter because we have to be able to collect the data off our meters. We have to be able to import that into our billing system, and we have to be able to send out bills. That's just the nature of our business. So whatever that takes, we kind of have to do it. I guess that's the position I'm in. And I'd just assume that you start that process to get those people on board, because I'm just hearing of all these things that have to be done in order for us to generate bills from these meters, and you don't have very many weeks to do it. But since you've presented the numbers, I have to ask questions to understand them. So Mike, the first column you've got there on the left, approved budget, what is that for? Is that just the approved budget to do the electrical reads for the electrical side of the business?
No, so that includes the 3 meter readers that were in the 2023 budget. That was approved back in October. So
Okay.
that's already in the budget, ready to be spent.
And do we have 3 meter readers on board? Is that basically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
we
that's-
have 3 meter readers now.
That's covering what we have. So then you've got 3 additional positions. And is that now cumulative? Are you adding the 3 additional positions on top of the existing budget? I'm trying to understand what's
Okay.
on there.
Yeah, so I guess I should have been a little bit more clear. So that's the 3 that we already have plus the 3 additional. So this is the cumulative cost of 6 meter readers,
Okay.
what it would actually cost us for all 6 of them.
And then the top part is salary. And then the middle part, you've got taxable benefits. That's, I'm assuming, exactly what you're saying it is, the taxes and the benefits and so forth. And then what's total loaded cost mean?
So that is the 2 costs. So that, the wages plus all the benefits, taxes and everything. So this is what it would actually cost, total cost for the PUD for all
For the-
6.
For all 6, the existing plus the expanded. And then
Yep.
I don't know if you want to mention it, capitalized and expense costs. That may be getting into the weeds too much to understand.
So that
I-
is if they're changing out a meter, that's an asset, they're helping with work orders because sometimes they help flag or stuff on work orders where we capitalize those expenses, they get spread over the life of assets, and then, or it just gets expensed within the year that it happens.
Well, and I know this gets back to the RUS stuff and the tier ratios, and if it's capitalized, it's better for tier, blah, blah, blah. But I think I get it. So now I see what you're saying. The 350 is almost the loaded cost of the 3 additional employees. It's really close.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I've got for now.
How much time do we have before we have to be in a position to take over from Landis and Gear?
So can we believe it's February 20th, worst case scenario? In our offer letter to them that Joel will help me craft, we will ask for a couple, 3 months to get us a buffer. Hopefully they will do that. We will probably have to agree, though, to doing the manual reads ourselves and doing some additional work that typically we don't do.
So if I'm understanding the numbers correctly, in order to take over from Landis and Gear, it appears, correct me if I'm wrong, it appears that we're doubling the cost from what Landis and Gear has been charging. And I'm wondering, is there an opportunity to do a last minute negotiation with Landis and Gear and to send them the message that, hey, look, we haven't heard from you, and the path we're going to go down, absent an agreement, is that we're going to have to take over this function. And if we don't get a response from you folks by a certain point, then we're committed to that course of action, and then the only thing we're asking from you is a reasonable transition period.
So Ken, if I understood you right, I, I want to point out that the 3 additional meter readers will cost us $384,000. That's just slightly over what Landis and Gear is charging us. The additional cost would be in the first 2 months, putting the route together with a consultant and purchasing the vehicle. Even the vehicle purchases, though, would go to other departments as we expand out in broadband and in fleet and those kind of things. So even the vehicles would be purchased under this project, but the eventual long-term cost would be spread over other projects.
Okay, I understand that, but does the 300, under the approved budget, does the $362,000 include the current costs for Landis and Gear?
No, those are our existing meter readers. Just the labor cost. Just the labor cost.
Okay, so then the difference is the $350,000 that we're paying to Landis and Gear subtracted from the $384,000 of additional costs.
So,
Correct.
yeah, because the 350,000 we pay Landis Care was in another part of the budget. I was just trying to show just the labor costs here in this
Okay.
section. So we
Okay,
would save money in other places, and then, it would increase labor costs. So the $350,000 was in the approved budget. It's just in a different
place.
area.
Okay, that confused me. All right, so.
Right. So we're looking at the 350 was in the budget. That money will get used up if we no longer have the Landis and Gear contract in place. That's going to free up, 300,000, maybe. I don't know what point, that contract sunsets. So the question for me is, the elephant in the room is the AMI, right? We are already 5% build out into the AMI. Are we going to accelerate that process to try and negate the term that we're going to be in the bite here for trying to figure out how to get these reads done? Because once we're in the AMI, it kind of, we won't need the reading, I would assume, nearly as much, and we'll disperse the staff. Obviously, we're going to defer the costs out of the fleet to other departments. That's probably already part of the budget process. So again, to me, it all comes down to, I appreciate everything's being said, understand. It'd be nice to get kind of a better rounded numbers of the net here or the gross there, as far as the overall budget, what the impact will be by the end of 2023 if we go down this road.
So, Jeff, do you want to go before I answer? Or?
No, go ahead and answer the question.
So it's a great question. That's part of the discussion that I want to bring out today. We would expedite the meter installs and try to get them all completed in 2023. Before, we were going to do 2023 and 2024. So we would expedite them. The thing is, we would probably change, though, the build out. We would build out in a little different way, because we would try to get the hardest, the most expensive meters that we have to report back automatically. So that eliminates some of the, 3-mile driveway for 1 meter, those kind of things. So we would reconfigure the AMI project a different way. So that is part of the solution. If I had to throw a number out there, Dan, and part of this is we're not sure how Landis and Gear is going to come to their final dollar amounts. I'm going to say, and I'm probably a little high here, not counting the vehicles, for us to go away from Landis and Gear will cost us about $75,000 to $100,000 extra this year. Now, if we had to go a 2-year contract, that would, all of the money we're talking about would be a wash. But because we're going to change the MI to a 1-year contract or a 1-year build out, these numbers look pretty heavy. But with labor, everything else, like I say, you got to figure at least 75,000 to put this project in place. But I'm going to offset that with, we are hiring locals, we're spending the capital or the funds here versus giving them to Landis and Gear. So the 75 to 100,000, when weighed against other things we could do, I think it's a good deal. Not that, and I want everyone to know this is a huge task. Everyone would have to work together. We would have to work quickly. If we do this, what would happen? We would actually start advertising for meter readers tomorrow. And Joel and I would get the emails ready to send Landis and Gear with some firm dates saying, okay, if we don't hear back from you, and this is kind of our last ditch effort to work with you, because they have been a partner of ours in the past. We have worked together for 10 years. We just need to get a definite from them. If they agree to do certain things, maybe we go down a different path. But if they don't, we're advertised for the meter readers. That gives us about 2 weeks. We would start our meter survey where we start building our routes by the end of the week. So a lot would be happening, many things going on at the same time, but that's the only way I feel we can meet our deadlines if they do the nuclear option and just pull away.
So my question is, I appreciate all the information. I think that you've presented a pretty clear analysis of our situation. What are you looking for from the commissioners today?
So from the commissioners today, I'm really looking at your feelings on kind of path forward. We don't have all the information to give you today. I wish we did. But this will come back on the 17th and it'll be discussed at that board meeting. But for us to make this work, I have to start advertising tomorrow. I have to start the site survey sometime this week. We have to go to the IBW. There, many things have to happen. And we would start that process tomorrow, as long as we can come into a consensus that we all feel we're doing the right thing.
Okay, well, I kind of shared my feelings. My biggest concern is that we are able to gather the data and put together accurate bills. And, you know, you and I spoke over the phone before this meeting, and if it turns out it takes us longer to get the data than we normally do, and we have to delay some people's bills by a week or 2 weeks, I think we just need to have, what I'm hoping to see is for us to have contingency plans in place so that our communication with our customers is clear. So they know that we're going through a transition, that we're taking over this service, that we've bringing people on board, and here's how it's going to affect you. You know, if your bill's going to be a week late, explain that. But I think what we send out has absolutely got to be accurate. Once it leaves our offices, bills need to be accurate. So if we've got people out reading meters and putting in the info into the system, somebody's got to be checking those to make sure that all of a sudden somebody's bill hasn't jumped 10 times or something because we've got an inaccurate number accidentally put in there. That's my concern. And I think people can understand when a change is happening. I think they can understand if their bill is higher than normal because it's got 1 or 2 additional weeks on there. But what I think they'll give us a break on all that. And I think you're right. I think there's some local benefits to keeping the Landis and Gear money in the county as opposed to sending it out of the county. But I think what we have to do is just to try and think of the things that can go wrong and get different levels in place to make sure that once a bill leaves our office, it's accurate. And get ready for, delays or whatever, and communicate clearly with our customers as to what's going on and why.
So I agree and appreciate it and agree with everything Commissioner Randall said there, but obviously we have to have a safety net and a path forward. So, I'm on board with what I'm hearing so far. Some of the steps we're going to take are steps that we can, use in different ways, use the people in different ways. Overall, the other part of the component for me is the overall cost on the budget for the year. I realize that's a moving target until we start taking some of these steps. I don't know what the consultant to look at, going out and identifying all the meters, what the cost of that really is going to be at this point, and it may take us a while to figure that out, but I know we got to identify those meters because, as Jeff said, we need accurate bills and we need to bill to generate the revenue. So, and again, in 2023, I want to minimize rate impacts to the customers or inconvenience to the customers because we have added an extra week for whatever reasons. That's the communication part, but we do need to communicate whatever it is we're doing early and often out to the public. So that's where I'm at the moment.
So I agree with what has been stated by the 2 other commissioners. Communication is critical in this process. I'm a little bit relieved because looking at the numbers for what the electrical division has been bringing in, we've significantly exceeded what had been budgeted as a result of the really cold weather that we had in November. And so I think we've got a bit of a margin there. And we have to do what we have to do, very simply. And I'm a little bit disappointed, but not surprised based on the absence of communication with Landis and Gear that they would try to leverage us in this fashion. But it looks like our taking this on creates a number of synergies, a number of ways that we can use the employees as well as the additional equipment, trucks in particular, for a variety of purposes. So, all right, let's move forward.
Excellent. You'll get an update on the 17th. Stephanie is on. She's been working on some advertisements to get it out for jobs, and we'll move forward starting tomorrow morning. Joel and I'll get together and craft something to send out to Landis and Gear within a day or 2.
Very good. Commissioner Tupper, you wanted to talk a bit about the South County emails?
Are we all done with the?
Well, not quite. I noticed that Tom Tiersch has his hand up, and I'd like to recognize him.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. I wasn't sure if you were taking public comment. Interesting situation. I was just thinking a couple of things. When you took over from Puget, they must have had routes that their people traveled. They must know where the meter routes were. Maybe that's still documented somewhere in the archives. Just a weird thought that maybe that would save you some time in terms of identifying how to optimize the travel. The other thing that occurred to me is if you run into a shortage, if you can't find 3 additional meter readers, you might not just have enough labor to read all those meters. You could do it like every other month. just like a lot of people have budget billing, their bill stays the same every month. Well, maybe you could explain to people, hey, we're going to do an estimated bill based on your average this month. Then next month you'll get your real bill, and go ahead like that. And maybe that could eliminate at least one of those 3 additional meter readers that you need. Just some thoughts. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your suggestions. For a moment, I thought you were going to volunteer to go out yourself and help us.
I don't think I could get bonded for that.
So if there are no further comments from the public, then Dan, do you want to share with us what you've heard?
Yeah, thanks. And one other final thought on that last topic, after listening to Mr. Tiersch especially, is our CSRs, we may have to hire half a dozen more CSRs if we aren't successful in our messaging to the public. So yeah, I've been gotten about a dozen comments from residents down in the southeastern part of the county, in the Brennan area and Hood Canal area there, about and also they've included Commissioner Brotherton and myself in these emails. And there's an NTIA grant down there that was awarded to Hood Canal Communications in partnership, I think, with Mason PUDs. And in the process of that grant application and award, they neglected to take into account about 250 poles that are located within Jefferson County. They replaced a lot in Mason County with money from the county down there, ARPA funds or something, as part of that project. But it was about a $2 million shortfall in their grant. And so the residents down there, they're Mason County electric customers, but they're within our county and, obviously our water jurisdiction and other things in there. And the ask from them is being pretty consistent in the wording, is they'd like to formally request our organization's support of matching funds to help Hood Canal Communications and Mason One with the final funding needed to connect the community down there. That's the $2 million in poles. And so I'm going to craft an email to send back. I don't want to answer them all individually. I want to be consistent. And I'm going to basically tell them that, that's Mason County's PUD's infrastructure. That's not something that I believe Jefferson PUD electric funds should be going to support those poles. And we have our own poles we have to replace. So this is something we'll have to talk about as a board coming up, as to, how much relief or aid or funding we can give to other grants beyond our own grants. So that are within our territory, so to speak. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. I don't know if you had heard anything about this, or if you'd received those emails. You weren't copied on the ones that I received. So I just wanted you to be aware, of that situation down there and those kind of asks that they're looking at from our utility.
Commissioner Randall?
Hey, Dan, not having seen that email, or maybe Will can weigh in on this. Are you saying that they had a proposed project area and their infrastructure was such that the money isn't going as far as they thought it would, because they're having to do more work on pole replacement, and that they're not going to complete the project? What I don't understand the kind of the bottom line.
Yeah, so they have the same grant, the NTIA State Broadband Office that we got. We received about 12 million. They got 11 million. Their project, it's going to cost them more than they anticipated, because they're going to have to replace out most of their poles in the Brennan area, because they can't carry any more weight on the poles. The poles are undersized. So they're seeing a $2 million shortfall. They've got to replace the poles. They've got a tight window like we do, and they're looking for some help and some solutions. I've talked with Kristen Masteller down at Mason One about options. Been in touch with Commissioner Brotherton of the BOCC. We want to help support them, or staff's opinion is to help support them obtain any matching funding that they can get, or provide technical assistance. But because it's not our electrical infrastructure, we can't provide any direct funding to that cause.
Okay, so again, this is Mason PUD electrical infrastructure that basically is insufficient to carry the additional equipment, and they're having to replace out more poles than they anticipated, and their budget's running out before the project's getting completed. What are their hopefully, I don't want to get us too far in the weeds, but what are their requirements on this grant? I mean, if it was us and we went back to NTIA and said, geez, we can't do the whole project. I mean, what are their responsibilities under what they agreed to do?
I can't say exactly. All I know is that they have 11 million to complete the project. It's 2 million more to fix the poles to make the project possible. So they're going to have to work to obtain that $2 million. And there's grant opportunities right now from the state broadband office that we're applying for. There's curb funding that I passed on to their office. That's combination grant loans. There's earmarks for the federal government. So there's options. It's just a short turnaround. So I certainly feel for them. We want to assist where we can. It's going to be a bit of a challenge, but it's not insurmountable.
Yeah, and I just want to make you guys aware of it, that, I'm going to respond, and it's likely that we aren't going to be able to help in the way they want us to help. There's other synergies or ways that we can help. We'll most definitely do that. We'll lay some of those out with, letters of support and things like that, and maybe fiber that we can utilize down there. But I just wanted you guys to be aware, it's probably I'll respond before our next board meeting. So I just wanted you to be aware of the situation and what I was going to say to them about this particular issue. And this is, in a way, it's a bit of a learning experience for us too. We see how these grants play out. And if you don't get everything accounted for, I would imagine they won't lose any of their grant money, but they're just not going to be able to finish the project the way that they've promised that they probably would be able to complete the project. Be my guess. Barring any more funding coming, not coming from somebody between now and the time that their deadlines come up.
Well, thank you for bringing this up. And it is good that they included Commissioner Brotherton on this, because they are Jefferson County residents. It does fall within Jefferson County's jurisdiction. It's just that we don't have service down there. So, okay, interesting. Thanks very much.
So more specifically, and I'd like this to be a Kevin question. How can we provide, what assistance are we capable of providing to them?
So we're going to bring some options back on the 17th at a regular scheduled board meeting. There are, for example, we've supplied fiber down on the Hoe when we've done work for the tribe. Maybe we can do some of that here. We do get tax money from Brennan. Maybe there's something there we can do. So I don't want to just say no to this ask. We can't come close to $2 million, and we can't repair their infrastructure, but we can do other things. And I think that's where staff and the commissioners need to work together to come up with something that helps South County. We have water down there. It is in Jefferson County. So staff will have some ideas and we'll push them forward as best we can. But I do think this is a project we need to spend some time on to help with solutions.
So Commissioner Tupper, can you wait until staff provides us with more specifics before you respond to the request?
I don't know how many more specifics they'd need, other than the fact that maybe the county is going to maybe do something, maybe some coordination with Commissioner Brotherton might be in order. I don't know, beyond what's already transpired between him and Will. I don't know what deadlines they're under. Maybe Will has some time. Are they under a timeline constraint at all? Do you know, for us to quote unquote help them?
The grant deadlines are due relatively soon. They're aware of that. Kristen Masseller is working on those projects. So I'm not sure. The total deadline for the NTIA should be spring of 2024. So they have some time to, I think it's also integral to even starting their project of stringing that fiber on the poles as part of the challenge.
Yeah, so, we could wait. I've already talked with Kevin and staff about what I, thought I would probably respond. I wanted to make it uniform, not just respond to each individually, have kind of a fixed statement to give back to them with a little bit of background on what we can or cannot do. And that, there are things that maybe we could work out. So to your question, I probably could. I just don't like this necessarily looking like I'm avoiding, giving them some sort of response that, we're taking under consideration. I guess I could keep it as simple as that. But I don't want to make it sound like, get anyone's hopes up, so to speak. And I also don't want to give direction that the board has not yet given as a board as to what our options could be. So I'm kind of in a limbo here as to, what to do. I just don't like leaving it hanging out there.
Understood. No, I don't think it's something we should just leave suspended indefinitely. But I also think we can't do exactly what they're asking for. But I think to the extent that we can be specific as to what we can do to help them, I think being able to be concrete in this, in our response is better than just saying, well, we'd like to help and be indefinite about that.
So I guess, I'm ambiguous, I could wait about this. So my question would be to Kevin, will we have enough information, do we think, at the meeting on Monday to be able to, respond? I mean, I don't want to keep stretching this out. So what kind of a response is warranted at this point or after Tuesday's meeting, I guess? Maybe staff can weigh in.
I've talked to Kristen. One of the things we talked about with her is maybe something with fiber. Now we have to reach out to Hood Canal and make sure that that is even feasible in what type of fiber they're trying to use and where. Because we do have options there. On the counties, the tax money we receive, that becomes, really, we targeted that for broadband on our grant monies. If we take a little bit of chunk of that and pitch it over to this project, it means we would probably have to come up with some funding to replace that out of the tax funds, out of revenues. So that'll be the discussion on Tuesday board meeting on how best, or should we even, the end of the discussion, it may be we only do one versus 2 or 3 items. I don't know. We're still looking at options.
Okay.
So I would leave it with, my fellow commissioners. Do you think we should respond at this point or not? I guess that would be, and if so, what?
My suggestion would be that you respond now and tell them that the Board of Commissioners is going to be reviewing different options that staff will propose at our next board meeting.
Okay.
Commissioner Randall, do you want to comment?
I'll just throw in, I'm hearing you, Dan, and I think it is fair to say that the situation does create some challenges because it's Mason PUD's infrastructure serving customers within Jefferson PUD's area, but that we are going to be looking at alternatives. I mean, I think you might, what I'm hearing you say is you don't want to raise their expectations, and I think it probably isn't a bad idea to clarify that's a challenge, but that we are going to look at what we can do.
So is that sufficient guidance, Commissioner Tupper?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good. So we have concluded our agenda for today's special meeting. If there are no further comments from Board of Commissioners or staff, I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Commissioners.
Have a good
Appreciate it.
evening.
Yeah. Appreciate the